I'm just lazy out there. Can't help himself. I know, I was just thinking he can't. Wait, where's the mute? He's got some guy out there.
Okay, so what do we have to do?
Yeah, they've just said, can we can we get people to mute their mics? I'm just get people to mute their mics. I've muted it.
Hello, everybody. Nicola from the ARU here.
I've been typing on the webinars and then it's come through.
Now you connected to this?
Yeah.
Yeah, good girl.
They said, can the girl from Thingamabob please, from the Marion Centre, please mute her phone? Oh, shit! Forgot to do that.
Mute what?
Mute the phone, because what I do is at work on the webinar, because we don't have a mic, I teleconference in, because it's usually silly, so I teleconference in, but then I can hear them, so.
Cool.
Hello, can everybody hear me? I've just actually put everybody on mute, but it would be good to check that you can hear me before we get cracking. If you're able to just send me, for those of you that are familiar with it, a chat message, just down in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, just to confirm you've got audio, that'd be great. Excellent. Getting lots of yeses, which is good. Hello, Shakeshaft. It's good to have you online. Great. So we're on the dot of 9, so I might kick off actually. It's obviously late for those of you on the eastern seaboard and after work for those of you over west, so we definitely don't want to hold you up any longer than we need to. We'll start though by just obviously checking the audio side of things, talking about how you can ask questions and the best way to do it to keep the session moving, and also just checking that you can see the screen as well. So as the organiser of the meeting, I've got the ability to mute all of your microphones, which I've done. The reason that we do that is with 25 people on the line, there can be some significant kind of background noise. So it's just good practice, generally speaking, unless you have a question you'd like to ask, in which case you're more than welcome to turn on your mic and speak up. We'd be very happy to have an actual chat. But otherwise, an alternative to that, if you feel more comfortable, is on the toward the bottom of the panel that you're seeing that actually pops up when you log into the online session, is an area called chat. So it just presents you with an option to type in your question. You can type it, the whole audience will see it, unless you select that you want to make it private, in which case only Matt and I will see it. The advantage of typing your questions in there is that it enables Matt and I to take a look at them. So while one of us is presenting, the other is monitoring that chat window. And if we know the content is coming up, we'll actually continue and you'll get an answer to your question shortly. If it's a new question or something we feel you might like to discuss, then we'll pause at an appropriate time and actually turn the audio on for a chat. The big advantage of this is that we've then also got a record of the questions that have been asked, and there will probably be some things we need to follow up with you on in terms of providing you information and things like that. So having that chat log is a good way for us to keep track of the people we owe responses or information to. So we appear to have a good chunk of people on the line now. Audio seems like it's fine, which is great. Are you all able to just give us an indication via the chat window that you can see the screen as well? Just want to make sure that the presentation is currently appearing.
Great.
Terrific, okay. All right. So the first thing I should do really is introduce the presenters to you. So my name is Nicola Slatter. For those of you, if this is your first session, I'm the project manager for this RugbyLink project at the ARU. I joined the ARU in late July, so I've kind of joins the project at the interesting and kind of exciting end of the deal, which is really good. So I'm getting to do a lot of talking now with clubs and member unions, and that's really enjoyable. I'm also presenting today, and all the other sessions will be running with Matt Holding. Matt's been at the ARU for over 3 years. He's also done work with New South Wales Rugby. He works on the competition admin and also the MRA support side of things. So for those of you that use Australian Rugby's current system, you might have dealt with Matt online or in person. So he's got a really good insight into the kinds of questions you'll ask, the functionality of your current systems, and what you'll be looking for in a new system. So between us, I think we've got both of the bases covered. In terms of follow-up, there'll be a follow-up email which provides you with lots of links and things like that. I'll confirm for you now, though, I'm probably a couple of times throughout, but if you want to reach Matt or I at any stage, you can do so at the following email address, rugbylink, all one word, @rugby.com.au. So those emails will go to both Matt and myself, and we'd be very happy to give you a call or to provide some follow-up information, whatever you need from this point forward. In terms of the session itself that we're running through tonight, this is session 1 of 2 sessions that are online. So hopefully over the course of the next 2 weeks, you'll get to attend at least one of each. This session is very registration focused. So we spend a bit of time actually running through, first of all, what we mean by registration, specifically from your perspective as a club administrator, and why it's important to you, your club and your players. We talk about some registration scenarios as well. So you'd be aware, I believe, that this new system offers an online payment functionality. And so you've got some options as a club about how you want your players to register. And they are both online registration and payment and offline registration and payment options, or a combination of both. So we just want to spend 5 or 10 minutes talking through those options so you're really comfortable with how you'll be able to tackle next season's registrations. After that, I'm going to hand over to Matt, and he's actually going to be focusing on the system side of things. So the first thing we're going to do is run you through, from start to finish, a typical player registration scenario. So the process that either a parent or a player would go through when they receive an invitation from your club to register. The purpose of that will be to give you some context about the rest of the content we're going to show you, and also to hopefully give you some comfort that the actual registration process from the perspective of your players is really quick and easy. After that, Matt's going to show you the back end of the system and show you how to build a registration form. We're aware that there are probably a few different types of registration that you as a club offer, so you'll have the ability to create as many registration forms and products as you like, so your club has options. After that, we'll come back to me and I'll talk in brief about some recommendations we make around communications. So you're going to be using a new system, so are your players, and it's going to be important. The first hurdle for us will be ensuring that all of your players are able to easily and quickly register and access the new system. So we've got a couple of thoughts around the order in which we'd recommend you communicate certain pieces of information. You're welcome to tackle it in an entirely different way if you choose, but our experience with the system to date suggests that this might be the way to go. So we'll talk about that too. Then we'll quickly talk to you about your options for publicising registration via basically registration form links, and then summarise where to from here in terms of what the next steps are you can do. Even without access to the system, there are a few recommendations we can make in terms of helping you prepare and feel prepared in January. So unless anyone has any specific questions they'd like me to tackle now, in which case you're more than welcome to ask them, but if there's nothing specific, I can get into the content side of things. Okay, I'm going to take that as the fact that you're ready to go. Right, so the first thing we want to do is get you comfortable with what we're talking about when we're talking about registration, particularly in a rugby link context. So the most important thing you need to be aware of as a club is that essentially by registration we're talking about insurance. We consider registration from a system perspective to be the payment of the insurance and the new national participation registration fee. So that levy and that insurance component is what the system will class as the registration kind of aspect of the process. Obviously, while payment, whether it's online or offline, will deal with those registration fees and insurance fees, you also as a club have an option to add a membership component to that registration, which is essentially your club fees or subs. So what will happen is when we show you the registration forms, the forms will inherit and automatically display the appropriate level of insurance and the appropriate participant registration fee based upon the age of the person that's registering and the fee that applies to that particular comp. You as a club, though, will have as many options as you like to set different club membership fees for different scenarios. So to basically add them to the registration product that you're offering your players, and we'll show you that. From an insurance perspective, I'm hoping there's certainly been communications from other parts of the ARU that have actually been handling the fee structure side of things and the national review, but you should have all received as clubs notification of the new fee structure and notification of the shift from team to per player insurance. If you haven't, please let Matt and I know at that Rugby Link email address, and we'll make sure the appropriate people get in touch with you and provide you the information you need. So in terms of why registration is important, it really is all about that insurance question for the moment. Essentially, as soon as a player is recorded as registered on Rugby Link, they are insured, even if payment follows later or is made offline. So the most important thing you as a club need to do is either via inviting your players to register online or by letting them register offline and then updating their record in Rugby Link, they need to have a registration status of registered to be insured. From an insurance perspective, nothing has changed in terms of the extent or the duration of the coverage. So once registration is underway, those players will be insured for any kind of pre or post-season sanctioned rugby events, as well as obviously the standard 15s comp. There may be separate insurance that's offered around special events type coverage, but essentially the core coverage that you've already had continues, and coverage is, from an insurance perspective, from March to March. Sandra, yeah, just asking a question about the under 6 and 7 age groups not being required to pay insurance fees. Yeah, it's a good question, and one we're getting a bit. The challenge for Matt and I is we haven't really been involved in the setting of the fees as such, so there have been some quite complex conversations between member unions and the insurers about that. I think it's primarily about the level of risk that's attached to that kind of competition. There's certainly the fact that it's non-contact, and so therefore the liability from an insurance perspective is significantly lower. If you'd like some more information on that, though, we could certainly get the appropriate people to contact you and explain. Oh, and I just noted that Ian has mentioned the non-contact thing as well, so that's great. Yeah, you used to be given the youngest team free. That's not something I've heard before. I haven't been made aware at all that that's the case, and I would in the upcoming season, and I'd suggest because it's moved to per participant paced fees that any team level levies or concessions would no longer apply. In terms of assurances, Sandra, in the sense that any child in the age group will be covered in the event they are injured, well, the assurance comes from the ARU policy. There's also the certificate of currency that's issued by the insurer themselves. And there's absolutely, the policy suggests that if a player is registered in the Rugby Link system, then insurance coverage is extended for the 15th comp and the duration of the pre and post season. In terms of the information that we gather as part of the registration process, there is a combination of information that you have the option to capture and some stuff that's mandatory too. So the system will insist on capturing core detail like first name, last name, date of birth. There's also some fields that the ARU will mandate in the template that you use as club. Things like there's census information that, in terms of demographics and things like that, that the ARU is required to submit to the relevant sporting bodies. Guardian details, emergency contacts, things like that are just standard best practice kind of requirements. As a club, though, you also have the ability to add your own custom fields. So if you wanted to collect specific club information, you certainly have the option to do that, and Matt will show you how. How much is insurance and the new participant levy? Well, that entirely depends upon the type of registration and you as a club. So registration will vary based obviously on your membership fees alone. But in addition to that, there are 3 age brackets essentially where insurance coverage varies. Hopefully you've got all this information previously, but just to confirm, from an insurance perspective, the per participant levy for under 6s and 7s is $0. For juniors, it's $8 per player, and for seniors, it's $75 per player. In addition to that, there is the participant registration fee, which is being introduced as of next year. And to confirm for you, under 6s and 7s, that's $11 per player. Juniors is $27.50, and seniors is $33. And lastly, how long does registration last? Well, it largely lasts for the duration of the competition, essentially, as determined by the comp administrators, the people setting up the competition in the system. But obviously, insurance coverage, as we've mentioned, is from March to March of the season year. Does anyone have any questions in that area before we move on? Okay, just a quick run through for you of the options you have as a club, and then Matt will get in and show you how to make it all happen. So as a club, you've basically got 4 options that you can choose whether or not you would like to extend to your members. The first option is player registers and pays all fees all online. This is by far the most easy and efficient option for you as a club, but we certainly recognise that for a variety of very legitimate reasons, it might not be something that you get full uptake of, or that you feel comfortable enforcing at the club level, particularly with a new product and a new season and new fees involved. If you have this option though, money's collected immediately, it's dispersed to you as a club immediately. The player is insured as soon as they hit the register now or submit button, and there's nothing owed, so there's no invoicing that needs to occur or anything like that. It all just kind of happens. The second option you have is the player registers online and pays only the insurance and the levy, so the minimum mandatory amount that they are required to pay. In that scenario, what you're basically saying is you're giving players an option to pay less upfront, and you're prepared to collect your membership fee offline, either in instalments or a lump sum at an agreed time. So in that scenario, again, insurance coverage will be instant, and the bit that's owed and needs to be managed by you as the club is just the membership fee. So you can collect $10 a week if you're comfortable with that. You can structure that and collect that however you choose. The third option is the player registers online, but you give them the option to pay everything offline. Now, that's a more significant burden upon you as a club administrator, and it obviously also has cash flow implications for you, but that's certainly a decision you can make. In that scenario, again, because the players are registered online, they're insured, but you then take on the liability for and the burden of collecting those remaining fees, and you will be invoiced by both the insurer direct and by your member union for the insurance for offline players and the national participant registration fees for offline registering players. That invoice will come to you at the end of April. The initial invoice will come. They will look at RugbyLink to determine, first off, how many players are registered or not registered. So it's important to keep the system up to date. We'll talk about that in more detail as we go. And lastly, the option that you've got is the player registers and pays offline. So essentially, right now you've still got the option of going down the whole paper registration form route. In that case, the player is not insured until they are created in RugbyLink and their status is reflected as registered. That burden for updating the status falls to you as the club administrator, and then you also need to collect those fees, and similarly you'll be invoiced by the relevant parties and have to remit the funds within a certain time period. So those are your options. You can offer all of those or none of those or a combination. So Matt's going to run you through shortly the actual, first of all, the participant registration process so that you get a feel for the end goal and how quick and easy it will be for your players and your parents. And then he'll run you through building a registration form, and we'll talk to you again about the financial side and the options that you've got available. But if everybody is comfortable, I'll take over the chat side of things and I'll hand the screen over to Matt to show you the product.
Evening, everybody. The page where I hope you can all see this. The page that we've just landed on is the participant registration page. So this is what you'll be sending out to your members and prospective members, where they can come in and register for the season. So what we're looking at here is an example for Harbord Harlequins Juniors, and we can see here that who we're registering to and what we're registering for. So this specific page is for the junior under 6 and 7s registration area that we've set up. Now, as part of the communications process that we're recommending clubs adopt, most organisations will be sending to their members their login and password, which basically means they will see their login information before they land at this page. So if they enter their participant ID and password in here, they'll go straight into the registration portal. Now, the I don't know my login area here is based on people who have not received their login information prior. This may be a new participant or somebody who hasn't received this information. So if we just type in Nicola Best here and press Find Me, we should see two options here, one with an email address attached to their record and one without, and there's a slightly different process as to how they'll recover these details. Now, the no email section here, that basically means that that person hasn't got an email attached to their record at all. So they can either contact the ARU via this button here, which brings up a very basic form where they'll be able to enter some core details such as first name, last name, date of birth, and also their email address in which they would like to attach to their account. They could also go to the foot of the screen and contact someone from the club, which might be yourselves, and I'll show you how you can actually attach those details, including the email address, to a person's record in the other session, in session 2. So some of you might have already seen that. Someone who already has an email attached to their account can just email themselves their login here, and they'll receive a password, and they'll be able to recover that. Alternatively, the other scenario is that this person has searched for themselves and they still can't find themselves in the system based on their first name, last name, and date of birth, and they haven't appeared in this list. They could then go and create a new record, which would take them into the registration portal, and then they would have to fill out the registration form. For our example this evening, I'm just going to show you a person who already has a username and password. So I'll just bash this in here. And this is mocking a scenario that we hope is the most likely, whereby club administrators will send the login information to their participants before they land on this screen. So as you can see, the person's inside the portal now, and they have a product to choose. So we're going to select the Junior Under 6 and 7's registration. Now, for those of you that just saw the $100 amount there, we're going to just explain exactly how all of that works in a couple of screens' time. But for the time being, we've got our information all pre-filled here because we're a member of the club already. So we can see that all of this information is already entered, and the little red stars just basically mean that is a mandatory field that has to be filled out. We can change any of these details or information as we wish and make sure everything's up to date. And once we're happy with all of that, we can just hit next. The next screen that we will see coming up is basically a confirmation of this screen, checking that everything's okay. It'll give you the ability to go back if you've missed anything, in addition to reviewing the ARU standard terms and conditions that appear on sort of anything participation related. You'll also see at the foot of this page here that for any queries you can contact the Harbord registrar, and this information has been entered in another screen, which is in the organisation details screen. How are we going with questions, Nick? Is there any questions coming up?
Yeah, we've got a few. I'm kind of having a conversation at the moment with Martin and the group about the transaction fee. So we do get to that shortly on the payment page, but just to clarify, there's a 2.9% transaction fee that actually sits or is applied on top of the total of both the registration fee amount and the membership fees that you as a club might apply. That particular fee is purely a merchant fee. So it's directed to Visa and MasterCard essentially, and the payment gateway provider. It's applied to online payments, and it's one of those charges that comes with purchasing things online these days. So there's no deduction that occurs in terms of the club component or anything of that nature. It's basically a fee that the participant pays when they register online.
Great. So guys, as you can see, we've got the page up here which just confirms those details that we previously entered, in addition to the terms of registration. So I'm just going to click through here. There'll also be an option to add in a club disclaimer as well. So a club will be able to enter a sort of terms and conditions area for themselves, and that will appear on that page additionally. Now what we can see here is the payment confirmation page. So this is explaining all of the splits and where all the money is actually going to be going. I'm just going to hand over to Nicola briefly, who's just going to go through exactly each of the steps and where the fees are being directed.
Yeah, so what you're looking at right now is what the information that is displayed at the end of the registration process. So this is the last screen really. The way that the information is displayed is that the total amount payable for registration and your club membership is displayed in the first line, and then we display the splits. So It's all about that kind of transparency again, and so everybody's clear on which bits are going where. And it's also useful because you as a club, it helps you reconcile and keep track of the payments and the portion that should be coming to you. So the first row that you see here is actually, it's labelled the Australian Rugby Union, but essentially it's the insurance. So in this scenario, because Matt's example is registering an under 6s and 7s player, no insurance is payable, which is why you're seeing a $0 figure. The only figures that you would see there are one of those three figures that I touched on earlier. So $0 for an under 6s and 7s, $8 for a juniors, or $75 for a seniors. And the system will determine that based upon the registration type you've selected and the date of birth of the player. The second row that you see is your member union. And the member union is actually the organisation that receives the national participant registration fee levy that's incurred. So that money is directed straight to them for funding. So in this scenario, an under 6s and 7s player, that particular fee is set at $11. There is an option there for member unions to add a member union specific levy if they choose. Now, I'm not privy to any plans that the member unions might have of whether they intend to kind of utilise that facility or not, but the option is available. So if you'd like some information about the plans there, we'd recommend that you contact your competition manager or member union and ask the question, although I would hope that they'd communicated with you on that prior to this session. The third line that you see there is essentially any competition that's involved. So this was a juniors club that's sitting in the Sydney Juniors comp, and therefore Sydney Juniors have a row attached to them, and they can again decide whether they would like to charge a competition fee or not. In this example, Sydney Juniors are charging nothing. And the last row that you see is your membership fee. So that's the amount that you've set in the system, and that's the amount that we will transact directly to your bank account. The advantage of the payment gateway is that it actually disperses the funds to you within 2 business days. So it's a fairly quick turnaround, and there are some advantages obviously to you as a club from a cash flow perspective. We can definitely click the offline payment button. What happens in that scenario is the online transaction fee disappears, so the participant obviously doesn't have to pay that. The end result will be that they will receive, once they proceed via a confirmation email, an attached kind of receipt on invoice that they'll then need to liaise with you about. So the transaction will get a number, and then you can pursue them or contact them with respect to payment at a later date if you choose to. So the options of online and offline payment that you see displayed there are displayed there because in this example we've chosen to display them. If you would prefer in some circumstances to not offer offline, you can switch that option off. And you can also give your players a choice, if you choose to, about whether they just want to pay the insurance and levy online and the rest offline, or whether they want to pay it all offline. So you've got options there. And I see Matt's just beat me to the next question, which is about how people can pay. So Visa and MasterCard, debit and credit are the payment options currently available.
So guys, what I'm going to do here is just whack in a dummy credit card, just to get you through to the last screen, to show you sort of how the confirmation all works. So I'm just going to submit that. Normally takes a few seconds to get through. But what we're expecting to see on the next page is basically a confirmation of what we've actually paid for and what we've signed up to. And it'll sort of also tell us that we're going to receive a confirmation email in addition to the payment transaction number as well. In the case of new participants, anybody who sort of registered themselves from scratch from that initial page where they created a new record, they'll also receive a confirmation email of their username and password for future reference, which is also another feature of the system.
I'm just responding to Ian's question about, Ian has asked why is there not an option to avoid merchant fees? Obviously, Ian, the offline option does that, but I assume you're wondering why the online option doesn't. It's kind of a complicated question in the sense that it's not just Visa and MasterCard that are the merchants in this instance, but there's also the bank who runs the merchant facility, and there's the payment gateway technology provider. So there are actually a variety of different people involved, and the 2.9% is kind of a consolidation and calculation of the fees that are incurred in each of those points. So very boring explanation, but there is a legitimate reason why it's not possible to offer an online option that doesn't incur a fee, given whatever we offered would involve the gateway and a bank, essentially at a minimum.
So we've received the confirmation page here, guys. We've obviously got the option to print this as well. We've got a thank you, a participant ID confirmation here, as well as being told where our confirmation email has been sent, in addition to the payment transaction number that you might want to keep for your own records. And as we touched on before, there's all of the information about the splits here as well. So what I'm going to show you next is where you'd actually access RugbyLink as a club administrator. So I'm just going to shut my browser here. You go into the system as the Harbord Harlequins registrar. So as Nicola mentioned previously, there's certain fields, and how we looked on the system as well, there's certain fields that are mandatory to be captured by the ARU. So in addition to that, we were sort of looking at custom fields as well. So just going to show you that in a second. Nick, how are we going on with some more questions?
Yeah, I've just got one actually that I was just thinking about in relation to Shire grants. I think that was from you, Sandra. We've actually had a fair bit of discussion around government vouchers in a number of the states like WA and Queensland. We're aware that there's some kind of portion funding that actually is offered in those scenarios, and you will have a registration product that caters for that. With regard to Shire grants specifically, I must admit that's the first time that particular term has come up in conversation. So it's probably something that I will have to investigate for you and get back to you as part of the follow-up to the session. It sounds to me, if it's something that comes from the government at kind of annually, that it might be something that occurs outside of the system. But if it's related to those player vouchers, then there will be an online or system option that caters for it.
So we're inside the system, guys. I'm going to take a look at custom fields, just as previously mentioned. So if we go to the People tab and down to Custom Person Fields, I'm going to get a page where we can add in any custom fields that we like here. So from my example I created earlier, we've just got a jersey size option that's going to be displayed in a drop-down list, and our participants are going to have the option of small, medium, large, extra large, and double XL for all the big kids out there. These are going to apply to players. It's active, and we can look at when it was last updated. So to add a custom field, we just click on this button here, and we'll get an option to add in a name, description, and then sort of how we want to exactly capture this information. So an example that I used earlier was that you might want to capture when people would like to see the end of season trip happen, or a presentation night, or a barbecue, whatever. So you could put this question in here, and then you could choose the date entry field, which would force the participant to add in a date if you make this mandatory on the registration form. The custom fields don't have to be attached to a registration form at all. They can be just left for your records, and they'll just be attached to a person record in your database. You can also prohibit the editing by logged in participants. You don't generally want to have that ticked unless you want to hide it from participants for a certain reason or for a certain period of time. You can apply this to just players or contacts, team officials. There's a variety of ways in which you can target some of your members. So as you can see here, there's a drop-down list with a variety of roles that you can attach these custom fields to. Alternatively, you can have it attached to every single record in your database. We need to make it active, and then the sort order basically means where it's going to appear on the participants' records. If you've got a long list of custom fields, do you want it at the top, for instance? It'll also decide on where it appears on this page. Now, next, we're going to look at actually setting up our registration form for 2015 season. So if we visit the Online Forms tab, click on Configuration and go to Sign Up Forms. Well, what we're presented with here is a list of the current products or registrations that we're currently offering. So you can see that 5 people have signed up to our under 6/7s, and one of them was the process we just went through previously. So what we want to do here is add in a new registration form. And what the options that we'll see here is basically a drop-down list of ARU templates. So as we're in sort of a test trial environment at the moment, we're getting a under 6 and 7s specific list. So we can see that we've just got the generic under 6/7s, junior and senior types. But for the purpose of the demo, we've just got the 4 to 5-year-olds and 6 to 7-year-olds forms here. So we're just going to choose a 4 to 5-year-old form and press refresh. Now the option that we get here is to review and save. Essentially what this means is you get the option to add in your club elements to this template. So we're going to be forced to do this. We're going to press review and save. And this is where we'll attach our club-specific elements to our registration. So we want to change the name here to Harbord Registration 2015 4 to 5. Now we want to add in a price. Now if I put a price in of $10 here, I'm expecting to receive an error message when I update. The reason for this is this price needs to be the total price of the club's registration for this area. So for a 4 to 5-year-old, we're going to call this $50. So essentially what this means is the club's going to be taking $39, and then the $11 that you see here is going to be going to the relevant splits. If we scroll a bit further down, we can see that we've got a few other options. We've got a number of available registrations. So if you've capped this at 100 participants for your 4 to 5s, for instance, you can put 100 in here. From and until basically means when is your registration going to be starting from and when's it going to end. And that's basically when they can sign up for the registration. And then there's several fields down here that are dictated from a competition perspective, such as the registration period and the registration type. Any discounts can be added in at the foot of the page here. So if you wanted to put in a general discount of $10 because everybody did so well last year, for instance, you could do that. Or you could add in an early bird discount and put, say, $5 off the total price if you register before the 31st of the 1st, 15. I'm just going to update that now. So what this means is, attached to the 4 to 5 template, we've added in our club element. So we need to go and create the form. And once we do this, we'll go through the similar sort of process. Back to the 4 to 5s, refresh. And this form now basically means that we've added in our club element. So we want to call it something similar. And we can add in a description. So some clubs may include socks for their minis, for the under 5s. So we'll put that in here. The form needs to be made active before anybody can sign up to it. And as you can see here, we've got the contact name and email. So anybody who's having any issues while they're going through the registration process can contact me. The payment settings that Nicola touched on in a few screens ago, we can edit that in this area. So the payment gateway online option is fixed so that all those fees can go where they need to. But you can also allow the offline payment option just here. The processing fee is also fixed because we've got the online option here. So the 2.9% is not editable. Now, I think somebody asked when can we enable the offline option on the previous screens. What we can do here is enter any sort of basic instructions. So if you do allow offline payment, you could enter your club's bank account details here for a direct online transfer if you wanted to allow offline payments. So you could put your club's BSB and account number and tell each individual to send them directly to you and enter their last name as the description, for instance. Or we could simply say, pay Sharon fees at canteen on Tuesday. Something like that. And that text will appear once we select the once we choose to pay offline on the registration form. The form fields, this is basically a standard registration template in here. So those mandatory fields, but what we can do is click on the additional fields tab and add in our custom field that we've already made. So we can add that in and press refresh. And what this will now do is allow us to choose whether we want this to make this mandatory or not on the online registration form. So if we select that. The type and products, we've got pre-filled, so this is what we already edited in the previous screen. And then at the foot of the screen, we've also got the option to create logins for new registrants, and we're displaying the payment split option here as well. We've also got the option to omit the credit card information from the offline payment form. So if we hit update, we've now created our registration form. So if we go back to the management screen here, we can see that it's listed, and you can get the link just by pressing on this preview option. If you go back into the edit option here, you'll see that we've got the unique link, and this is what we can communicate to our members as well. So that's how we create a registration form. Now I know it seems sort of fairly complex when you go through and step through a few screens, but there's plenty of support documentation that will step you through this process when you're actually setting up your online forms. So as part of that, we're going to record specific sessions that will be available online. They'll go for 2 to 3 minutes, and they will basically step you through how to create these forms as well. You've obviously got the support desk and the email that you can get in touch with, and there's some additional documentation that's on our website that will help you through this. But yeah, we do appreciate that it's new, and I did step through that fairly quickly because we're sort of running out of time a little bit. But yeah, you know where to find us. So I'm just going to hand back over to Nicola shortly, and we're just going to discuss some communications options.
Okay, so there's obviously going to be a fair bit of preparation that you need to do, and we're very sympathetic to the fact that the access you'll be getting to the system is in January, and so you're going to need a lot of support. And so for that reason, we're trying to do as much as we can to help you in terms of thinking about exactly what you need to focus on, creating a list of tasks that you need to do and working through them quickly, and also helping you with some email templates and things like that that might just make the process a little bit easier. One of the main things that we've given some thought to at the moment is the whole idea of, okay, you're new to the system, all of your players and parents are new to the system as well. What's going to be the best way to get everybody in and registered in the upcoming season? So we've put together a transition guide, which is one of 3 guides that we have around the whole area of transition and support. And this one is specifically relating to communicating with your members. The transition guides are available at the Rugby Link website, and what I'm going to do is actually run you through now this 3rd transition guide, which gives you a bit of a 4-step process from a communications perspective. So I'm looking at the document now. For those of you that might have had a click around the training area, above the chat window there's a window called Materials, and this is one of the documents that's in there, so you could download it right now if you wanted to. But otherwise it's on the website. So this particular guide is focused around giving you some general instructions in terms of what we'd recommend for communication. The first step that we'd suggest you do is early in the new year, we'd suggest you get in touch with your members. And in addition, you probably do that already to wish them a happy new year and hope they had a nice Christmas. As part of that particular message, though, we'd also recommend that you flag the new system. So first of all, give them the name Rugby Link so they know what you're talking about and what you expect in the current, what to expect in terms of comms from you. And then also a really important step is letting them know that the system is going to be sending them a couple of emails in the coming days or weeks, depending upon your timing. So they are going to receive, as a result of you triggering it as a club administrator, an email from the system that provides them with their new login and password. The critical thing about that is that email doesn't come from you, the club. It's going to come from the system, and the system, we've branded it Rugby Link, but the system itself is actually called Results Vault. So you need to be clear on what that email is going to look like, and we've given you an example of that. And you need to make them clear to expect an email from Results Vault so that they keep an eye out for it and don't think it's spam. The second step that we would recommend, aside from that kind of New Year, pre-season, hello and introduction to the system, is that when you're ready, when you have your registration products ready and you're good to go, you can bulk generate all new participant logins and send them in one go to your individual renewing players. So that's a very quick and easy process. It's something that we'll have it will probably be something in the region of a minute, I would expect, online tutorial for that you can refer to at any stage. It will give you a video snapshot of exactly walking you through the system, showing you what menu you pick and the buttons you hit. And so that sending of the new usernames and passwords to all your new renewing players will be very quick and easy. Again, we've provided you with a system-generated email example, so you've got a feel for what the system is going to look like and what your players and parents are going to receive. The third step we'd recommend after that is that you send your players in due course a registration invitation. That will include the link that Matt has shown you, and you can obtain that at any time and in a variety of ways. It's a registration specific link, so for example, you could search for all your under 6s and 7s renewing players. /parents, and you could send an email just to that group of people containing a unique link to your under 6s and 7s registration form. Again, we've provided an email template and suggested wording for that you might like to use, but obviously that's entirely at your discretion. And the last step we flag is more just what the system does as a result of registration. So as a result of registration, your renewed members will be emailed. They'll get a confirmation email that attaches a receipt and includes a receipt number and gives them an individual kind of record of exactly what they've paid and when they've paid it. There's a similar email that goes out to brand new players, so it won't just be renewing players that ultimately you'll be drawing in to register. You'll be hoping to get some new players on your books, possibly via a website link or something like that, a register now button that links to a blank registration form where they can fill out their details. As a result of that, those players will also get an email, and the additional piece of information that confirmation email will contain is their brand new username and password. So that's the kind of 4-step process we'd recommend, and on the second page you can see an example of the email templates that we suggest. Now, it's the second session that covers the communications tools. So the idea of emailing or SMSing groups of players or parents and sending those links, that's something that's covered in session 2. So what I'll do now is I can see Matt is feverishly responding to questions. So I might shortly take over the mantle from him, and he'll give you a final walkthrough of the options that you have available in terms of publicising registration. So that whole idea of new players and drawing people into your club.
Okay, so I'm just going to touch on something that someone's just asked me on the chat as well. So basically, we've looked at emailing and spoke about emailing our members and knowing people's email to actually contact them. But that link that I showed you that's brought up, you can also publicise that in several different ways. So through maybe your website, you'd like to have a registration button on your website and drive traffic there. You might want to publish this on Facebook on a certain page that your club has, or via Twitter. Alternatively, use the bulk SMS option to message this out to all of your members or people that have registered an interest with your club. There is a certain risk element as such in the fact that you can allow anybody to sign up to your club. Now, if this online option is applicable to your organisation, this will allow this person, any person really, to go in and register to your organisation and pay the fees. Now, obviously, because they're being split over different accounts, this doesn't go into a holding pattern before you can approve or reject them. So essentially, they get automatically approved to your club once they've gone through the registration process. Now, there will be an option to refund these participants, but obviously there's going to be several steps to get the money back from each of the splits, and then you'd have to deregister them from your organisation. So ideally, the email sort of is very targeted and wouldn't bring this risk across. In addition, you would think that from a private Facebook or driving people to a certain page on your website might also detract from this. There's also sort of the balancing act of weighing up how many people would actually go through and pay for a membership to your club that you wouldn't want at all. So there's sort of that decision that needs to be made, but we just sort of need to have that sort of chat and I guess raise that as a possibility. But don't really know how likely that would actually be when there's a fee involved.
There will be a refund policy, essentially, that the ARU publishes, and you as a club also have options in terms of your own refund policy and what you're prepared to accept or reject. So as part of the registration form process, you will be able to add a club disclaimer in addition to the ARU terms and conditions. So as part of that, you can also specifically stipulate in the event that your registration is rejected or you leave the club within a certain period of time, that this is the club's terms and conditions with respect to the refund of funds. So yeah, like Matt said, there's kind of that balancing act between the automation of the splits and the easing of the admin burden via the online payment option versus the refunding of all those individual components once they've been dispersed. Happy to have more chats and provide more information about that if you'd like. So, unless anyone has any other questions, we're kind of at the stage now where we'll sum up for you and kind of give you a very quick and clear indication of the next steps. I see, Sandra, you've asked a question. How do we look at covering kids who do trials, insurance coverage, etc.? That's a good question, and the first time I've been asked that one. So that's one I'll check with the people that know a lot more about insurance than I do, and I'll get back to you on that. So we'll follow up with this particular group about coverage for trials, and we'll probably also add that one to the frequently asked questions document, so there's a reference there for everybody in future. Thanks for the new questions. It's amazing how many there are. Just when we think we've possibly worked through every scenario, a new one pops up. Any other questions? There's nothing that Matt won't be able to handle via the chat window, I'm sure. But
no, there is. There's a lot here. I'm just apologising to all the people I haven't been able to get back to. I've just put a message up there. Hopefully you all saw that. This question log is basically downloaded by us at the end of the session, and then anything that hasn't been answered we go through and highlight, and then make sure that we can get back to you all on that. It is a bit of a time-consuming process, but we'll get to that as soon as we can and answer that within a couple of days. And then, as Nicola just mentioned, we'll update the FAQ as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt and I are currently on this training kind of cycle and program full-time. So following up, getting answers that we haven't been able to provide tonight and getting back to you is what we'll be doing for every moment in the lead up to Christmas. So don't worry, we will be in touch. And if we're not quickly enough, you know where to find us. In terms of the next steps for you, can I just check, can everybody hear me right now? I'm getting a message on my screen that suggests audio might be a bit flaky.
Yep, everyone seems to be okay.
All right, that's
yep.
Good. I will ignore the message. So first thing you need to do is, if you haven't already, please register for the second session, because that connects with this session and gives you some additional information in terms of what you need to do to prepare as a club prior to opening your registrations. We also give you confirmation of what data is being brought across and all of those kinds of things. So I think it's very worthwhile. The feedback has been good. You're also welcome to attend as many sessions as you like, either session 1 or 2. We've got a few people that have attended 2 already, and they've indicated that it's been good because they've got different things out of both, so you'd be very welcomed. The next thing we'd recommend is ensure you read the transition documentation that we've prepared. So essentially, those 3 transition guides that I've mentioned. We'll be putting fresh copies up on the website tomorrow. So we're constantly updating based on feedback and new information. So if you pop on the website tomorrow and take a look for transition guides 1, 2 and 3, that will give you a really good place to start. And there are things you can do even without having access to the system at present. Also, please rest assured there will be recorded sessions available to you that you can run through at any time. They'll be up on or around the 7th of January, and then they'll be available to you from that point forward whenever you need them. We're going to keep them short and sweet and task specific, so it won't be a recording of this hour-long session that we've had tonight. You'll be able to very quickly jump on and see how to do specific tasks. Just confirming for you that Rugby Link is open to you as club administrators on the 7th of January. We will get your username and password to your club's primary user prior to that. If you haven't been contacted by the AIU via either email or telephone, we've been doing both, and you're concerned that you might be out of the communication loop, then please, by all means, if you email Matt and I at rugbylink@rugby.com.au, we'll make sure that you're on the list. RugbyLink goes live for registrations on the 12th of January, and what that means is, at that time, you can invite players to start registering and paying online. Prior to that, the gateway won't be active. Also, just highlighting for you that this is the first of 2 phases that we're rolling out. We're focusing on registrations initially, but once you've all got your registrations underway and you're comfortable, we'll actually shift and go through this same cycle of live sessions, recorded sessions, documentation for competition admin and management. So there's a whole other area of the product that you and your clubs need to get comfortable with, but we wanted to deal with that separately once you were comfortable that your season was underway and your players were on the system. And lastly, just wanted to highlight for you that on the training calendar that you've no doubt already visited to get here, there are actually 2 frequently asked questions sessions, which will just be Matt and I on the end of the line and you guys, as many as you like, on the other, and we can have a bit of a chat. So if you go away and you've got some questions, there are things we haven't addressed properly, there's other content you'd like to touch on or get reassurance about, there's a session, 1 each week, 1 next week and 1 the week after, which will just be a conversation that you'd be very welcome to be a part of. So does anyone have any final questions? If not, then we're pretty much at the end of this particular session. Thank you so much for logging in. Thank you to those of you that it's late for. We know that you pretty much all do this in addition to your day job, so we're grateful for your time, and we're here if you need anything over the course of the next few weeks, and certainly right the way into next season. So what will happen is, once you log out of this session shortly after, you're going to get, I think there are 5 questions in a survey. Just keen to get your feedback on this session, if there was anything we could do better, because we're going to be speaking to you a lot. And also getting an indication of whether your club would be interested in considering the online payment option via the gateway. That email will also give you a link to the RugbyLink website that we've kept referring to. And other than that, anyone who'd like to stay on the line and chat, you're very welcome, but we can let the rest of you go. Have a great night, and hopefully we'll speak to you again really soon.
Thanks, everyone.